Hey guys, just want to add some texture to what I screenshotted there. So I know that a lot of times we struggle with trading the Asia session. And so it can be very choppy, but I think that managing expectations is very critical, right? I say this a lot. For those who have been following me long enough will know my perspective on how I trade each session. In Asia, although yes, you would love to be able to capture and move from here to here. I mean, of course, we'd like to do that. Maybe we would even want to charge from here all the way to the bottom. Totally okay. I mean, I think to each their own, you totally can. I think we all can treat the sessions in our own ways. For myself personally, I don't look for these bigger moves over Asia because naturally you don't get large moves on average. So instead, what I look for is usually 15-point scalps. Like 15 points is like a prime spot for me, right? 10 might not be worth my time. 20 is really, really nice. I mean, honestly, I treat 20 to 25s very similar to like home runs on New York session if you can get that over Asia, right? And so through my examples, you can kind of see why the 15 points made sense. And as I mentioned before as well, I do focus on risk a lot more than I do reward. So if I get stopped out early, I get stopped out early. It's part of why I entered where I entered. So I talked about earlier in my screenshot that after we broke below this descending triangle, and for those who don't know what that is, essentially, you know, it's not always going to be a perfect triangle, but you get the point. We broke below. And the moment we reach below, we're looking for that, this is the textbook 101 support to resistance trade, right? In the same way that we look at the larger time frames, we're looking at the shorter time frames in a similar manner. So when we're looking for this to pull down, obviously, we're expecting to get a pullback. And when we look for the retest of the pullback, which is exactly what it did, you might not enter immediately on the first candle because that can be risky. You might get like wrecked immediately. But again, it really just depends on what your risk tolerance is, right? But either way, whether you enter at the top or you entered at the bottom of the second candle using that pause bar as a signal, right? If you entered here, a 7.5 point stop loss would still put you above the prior candle high, which means if it breaches above, it chances are would continue anyways, right? And so that 7.5 stop loss would have given me the reason to enter here because it's safe to enter based on the risk. And then as you can see, we moved 15 points down. And even if it didn't breach all the way down here, 15 points would have been somewhere here anyways, right? So if it double bottomed, you still would have been fine, right? So you're kind of planning those scenarios like, okay, my risk is what is the prior bar candle high? Is that within my risk? So 7.5 points. Excellent. That's still 2R. If I get 15 points and the risk 7.5, that's still a 2R trade. So the risk for entry is good. On the reward end is what are the possibilities of this double bottoming on me? If it double bottoms on me, 15 points is still safe. Anything more than 50 points would have been too risky. And so you can kind of see essentially we didn't double bottom one and two, but we did double bottom here and here. It didn't successfully pull up, which then leads me to the next one, right? I don't think I would have shorted this. Instead, I would have watched the break below here. So kind of similar again, break below the channel area. And the moment that we get a pause bar, I'd enter on this bar here, as I mentioned in the screenshot. A 7.5 point stop loss would put you above the prior bar candle high again, and looking for 15 points was essentially what you would have gotten. So, for me, there's so many ways that you could look at these kind of trades. Maybe you're full sizing a top step account so you can get your $1,500 locked in for your 50% consistency rule. Maybe you're trading with less. Maybe you're trading with one con and you're looking for 15 points, and maybe you're going to do that, you know, 5 times over, right? And so that's $300 per trade on one mini. And if you do it 5 times, you'll get your 1,500 consistency. So if I would have scalped once here, one here, one here, and over time you can add up. Sure, you could do that as well. All comes down to, I think what's important is that when we define our method of trading, like when we're looking at it, what do we want out of it, right? Like I mean, because I think it's important to be consistent too. If you hem and haw and change your mind all the time, I'm not saying you can't, because obviously you have to let the chart tell you what the potential is there. But I try to systemize and create the most binary aspect to the trade as possible because it lowers my stress and tilt level when I am in the trade. And so, as you can tell here already, this was another eval that I just passed earlier by taking that approach of just scalping to the downside. I full ported 5 contracts for this one to get my 1,500 bucks. But again, I just want to touch on that. I get a lot of questions about how I trade Asia. That is one of the ways. And hopefully, if I were to summarize this, I took a descending triangle breakout with a retest of support turn resistance, and I used my risk management of 2R to watch my entries and take my targets as well, and being disciplined with that, not greedy, so I can capture that. You can say whatever you want about, well, you could have held longer, Alan. You could have taken more. That's fine. To each their own. I'm content with what I do. That's how I trade all my accounts individually. I take piece by piece by piece. At this point in time, it's 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Market's been open for 4 hours since the Globex open. I have passed an eval here. I have hit my $200 minimum for my XFA funded. I've done my 200 minimum for my two FFF accounts. And so that's just to get you started there, right? So I still have a couple more accounts that I can kind of siphon through, but that's just giving you some perspective of kind of what I look at when I'm looking at the Asia session. So if you have any other questions, feel free to drop a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. It does help me build out the channel presence. But until next time, thanks, guys.